Assalamualaikum everyone, I am Ahmad bin Azmi, and today for the outer circle of culture, I would choose Singapore. Why did I choose Singapore? It is because English holds an official language status in Singapore, making it a focal point for studying how English is used in various domains such as education, government, businesses, and media within a non-native English-speaking context. Singapore is a multilingual or multiracial society where English plays a crucial role alongside Mandarin, Malay, and Tamil. This linguistic diversity provides rich insights into language dynamic and diversity. As a global hub for finance, trades, and tourism, Singapore uses English in a broader trends of globalization and economic development. So this is the interviewee for the interview. He is a 21-year-old, a fluent speaker of English and Singlish, and has grown up in Singapore. His name is Shafiz Zakwan. He is an active participant in Singapore communities and social groups, especially in universities. He has many online friends and interacted online for a very long period of time ever since the COVID-19 pandemic. To see his reaction of the expansion of English in Singapore, I asked a few questions, and one of them is, what is the importance or significance of the expansion of English in Singapore? To which he replies, English holds immense importance in Singapore for communication, education, and businesses, as you can see here.
It's English. English holds immense importance in Singapore for communication, education, and business. It serves as our primary language for global interactions and opportunity. English proficiency is crucial for accessing higher education and career.
Other than that, I also asked another questions, which is, how has Singlish developed, has changed over time to this day? So, to which he answers, over time Singlish has adapted to the increasing influence of English. And we can see here.
The increasing influence of English. Pronunciation and vocabulary have evolved, reflecting the dynamic linguistic landscape of Singapore. For example, a newer generation of Singaporeans might incorporate more English slang or expression into Singlish compared to older generations.
Then I also ask another question, which is there any major test when it comes to tertiary education? So he replies with, there is IELTS and TOEFL, and you can see here.
Exams like the IELTS or the TOEFL are commonly required for tertiary education admissions, especially for students who haven't studied in English medium schools. Additionally, some universities may have their own English proficiency test or language requirement for admission.
For the history of Singaporean English or Singlish, there is a study by Teresa Rebecca Yeo. Singapore English has its root in establishment of British colonial rule in Singapore. It was emerged when Singapore gained independence in 1965 and decided that English should be the common language for all its citizens. Singlish has been heavily influenced by Malay, Hokkien, Cantonese, and it was built upon the foundation of British English. Over time, British English has become creolized with the local language, resulting the development of Singlish. Then, to see the history and development of Singlish, I also asked Mr. Shafiz a question, which is, English education or subject has been compulsory in Malaysia since the early 19th century. How about in your country? To which he replies, English has been a compulsory subject in Singapore's education system for a significant period.
In Singapore, English has been a compulsory subject in Singapore education system for a significant period, playing a pivotal role in our curriculum since the early years. It remains integral to education today, with English language proficiency being emphasized across all levels of schooling.
For the phonological part, Mr. Shafiz has said something about distinctive between short and long vowels such as bit and beat. As you can see here,
English sounds are pronounced differently compared to standard English. For instance, the distinction between short and long vowels like beat and beat tends to merge into one sound, pronounced as bit.
then we also have pronunciation of R. R might varies. It is sometimes also softer, like this.
Varies. Often it's softer, especially in the end of the words, differing from the standard English R sound, which tends to be more pronounced. For example, car might be pronounced as car or car.
According to Mr. Shafiz, some words also have this elongated vowel sounds, which, as we can see here,
Emphasis like saying no as no, or yes as yes.
and lastly, some certain letters before some words change on how they sound, such as the word mother and father.
And mother can influence how the vowels are pronounced in English, sometimes blending the sound together. For example, father might be pronounced as father, father, or father in Singlish, depending on the speaker accent and speech pattern. Similarly, mother might be pronounced as mother or mother in Singlish.
In the end, for my personal reflections, it is evident that Singaporean English, in particularly Singlish, reflects a dynamic interplay between English and local linguistic influences. The compulsory nature of English education underscores its significant role in Singaporean society, not just communication, but also in education and business. This interview shows me the complexity of language and dynamic and cultural identity within Singaporean society and the Singlish ability to incorporate new linguistic features while retaining its distinctiveness. Overall, the importance of English proficiency for accessing higher education and career opportunities underscores its role as a global language in Singapore.
Assalamualaikum and good evening. Today I will be presenting about the interviewee of my choice, which is from Indonesia. And here is the background information of my subject. The name is Falikul Isbah. He is a 19 years old, a second semester student of 10 November Institute of Technology, and he was born and live in Indonesia. Can you please tell me a little bit about yourself, please?
My name is Falikul Isbah. You can call me Falik. Currently, I'm a second semester student at Institute Technology of Surabaya. I am currently 19 years old.
Moving on to the first aspect of the questions, which is the speaker's reactions towards the expanding power of English in his or her respective country, and in this context, Indonesia. Early on during the video, according to him, not as many people in his immediate circle in Indonesia speaks the language English, including his friends and also relatives such as his family. He also clarified that he only ever used the English language to communicate in specific situations, such as when he was speaking with his colleagues in the same organization that prioritize and also utilize the English language, such as in his university. May I know if people around you often speak English? People around you such as like your family, friends or siblings? And does English considered as an important language in your country?
I think from my perspective, from the people around me, it's rarely there is rarely people talk to me in English, but there's some, maybe because I got to in some kind of organization that focus on English. That's why my that kind of friend will talk to me in English. But other than that, usually there are none. And then is it important in my country? I think it's really important, and also yeah, it's really important. Like in high school and middle school, it's like the standard to have English language in their class.
What do you think of the importance of English in your country? Do you think Indonesia needs to care a lot about English? Do you think it is important? It is important in your country?
I couldn't agree more. I think every country must agree with that, because not only to communicate with others, maybe in some country, like I know that the most used language is Mandarin, but still like English is preferably more understandable by some other countries. So I think it's most important. It's really important for us. And I think Indonesia already applied that to like in high school, in middle school. Like yeah, they're trying to make the people more knowledgeable about the English. The English itself. Yeah, maybe that's my answer.
Okay. I also agree with your answer, by the way. Okay. Moving on to the second aspect of the questions, which is the history, development, and the current progress of English language in the speaker's respective country. During the interview, it is to his knowledge that Indonesia is starting to focus and implementing the English language subject into high school and middle school syllabus, as they are starting to recognize the importance of English being taught and learned by the student. As far as it goes, that is his only knowledge about the current progress of the English language in his country. Next up is the phonological analysis of Indonesia. As the interview goes on, he explains further about his pronunciation of certain alphabets and sentences, and he shares a few examples of it. And here's what I've stated and what I've wrote down. These are the few examples of how the alphabet's pronunciation is in Indonesia. The letter A is pronounced as eh, as in cake, and the letter B is pronounced as beh, as in bed. The letter C is pronounced as cheh, as in check, and D pronounced as deh, as in day, and E pronounced as as in get, and notably, the letter V is pronounced as fair. It sounded more like the letter F instead of V, so fair. And lastly, the letter R is pronounced as R with a strong R sound. So when it all combines together, it will be pronounced as beh, cheh, deh, fair, and also R. And he also shares a few examples of the sentences too. First up is the sentence villa. Instead of saying villa, it's pronounced as villa. And the second word is volley. And instead of being pronounced as volley, as in volleyball, it is pronounced as volleyball. And the third sentence is caramel. Instead of the pronunciation is caramel, it is pronounced as caramel. And lastly, the sentence water is pronounced as water with a strong R at the end of the sentence. Next questions, which is do you find any English words that sound challenging to pronounce based on your native language? Like maybe you can seem to roll your tongue to pronounce certain words. May I know if there is any?
I think I don't think I have any experience like that, or maybe I don't explore enough. But I don't think so far there isn't some word that I find it a little bit.
Oh, I see. So there's not like any words
Yeah,
that you
I
cannot
mean,
pronounce.
there's some that hard, but it's not like it's not like impossible to talk. Yeah.
I see. I
It's
understand.
like you try and I can do it.
I see. Okay. So our next questions is there any specific sounds or letter that are hard to pronounce in your native language? Because from what I found on my research, there are a few letters that Indonesian seems hard to pronounce, such as the letter V have the same pronunciation as the letter F. Is that
Okay.
correct?
Mungkin to answer the question, I can take the example of V, like so in Indonesian,
Uh-huh.
V, if we spell it in alphabet, it sounds fake, not V. So the alphabet pronunciation is already different from English, right? Like English, like A B C one, A B C D E, but in Indonesia it's A B C D E, like that. And yeah,
Oh,
and the V, it's not V but fe.
Fair.
That's why like volley, like volley in Indonesia, it sounds similar to F, but if you write it, it's still using a V. Like volley is volley. I mean, in Indonesia, from my perspective, it's not hard. It's not hard, but it doesn't exist. The V in Indonesia. But if you go to in English, yeah, there is. So I think that's the difference between the V Indonesia and English.
I see.
So it's not volley, but I don't know if I pronounce it right, but in Indonesia it's volley, like
Volley.
using an
Oh. Indonesian have some pretty interesting pronunciations, I see. Okay. So, from what I've heard, you have some pretty good English pronunciations. And so, can I ask you, in how do you practice your English pronunciation? Like, do you improve it by hearing native speakers or just basically practicing pronouncing it? Can I know?
Maybe I'm not sure about my pronunciation, but I think because my hobby is watching movie, I pick it up from there. Like by watching movie, we know like how they actually pronounce it and how they actually use it in a convo and something else. I think that's my method to try learn other language, maybe English, like that.
I see. Okay. So, our next questions. Are there any specific English sounds that do not exist in your native language compared to standard English?
Yeah, I think I already mentioned it. Like a V, like the V in Indonesia, like I said just now, it sounds like more an F, not like a V. How do you pronounce the R in your native language? It's R. Basically, all the alphabets in Indonesia is different. So, like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. It's already different in the pronunciation of the individually.
I see. So, your pronunciation of the word R sounds as R, like
Yeah.
I've watched a video in TikTok, and instead of saying caramel, it sound as caramel. Caramel. Is that correct?
Can you repeat it?
The word caramel, stand English, when saying it in Indonesian pronunciation, it turns into caramel.
Yeah, I agree, but yeah.
Yeah.
Sound like that. Maybe what else? Yeah. Wait, let me search some words that maybe relate to it.
I've also found another word. That is water. Instead of water, is water. Water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like the accent in Indonesia is like that because they follow the like I mentioned it, the alphabet.
Yeah.
So it sound like that.
I see. So moving on to next questions.
Yeah.
Alright. So this next question is an opinion matter. So I'm going to ask your opinion about it. Okay. So the questions goes in your opinion, do you believe having a weak English accent might cause a problem during a communication with foreigners? Let's give it an example. A young Canadian man asking you direction to a specific place. However, you can't seem to understand the word he's saying. So do you think having a weak English accent might cause a problem during this kind of communication?
Based on the question, I think I can agree with that because there's many accent in the world like Chinese, Indian, and so on, and sometimes the English of some accent is they speak it more faster than others, so it's more hard to pick it up to understand it than slower and the standard English version. I think like that.
And the final aspect to this is the justification on the issues in the speaker's respective country. Given that Indonesia lacks the need to place importance on using the English language as much, its citizens aren't that much proficient in the language well enough. Unless they engage in a corporation that utilize the English language, the majority of Indonesian people does not communicate in English language. However, Indonesia have seems to take an interest in expanding English language in its country, as they started to introduce English to high school and also middle school syllabus. And that is all from me. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mohamad Zami, and from my group, I choose to interview a person from outer circle, and that is Colombia. The reason why I choose Colombia because English in Colombia is generally treated as a foreign language rather than native or second language. There may be differences in the pronunciation of vowel sounds compared to other varieties of English. Colombian English speakers often exhibit phonological features influenced by their native Spanish phonology. For my interviewee, uh, he is from Colombia. His name is Daniel Andres Vega Bedoya. He is 21 years old. Now, let's move on to the history of English in Colombia. During the colonial period, English started to impact Colombia mainly through trade and the presence of British along the coast. Merchants and traders from English-speaking countries established connections with Colombian ports, bringing English words and ideas into the local language. In recent decades, English has become increasingly important in Colombia due to globalization, technology advances, and the rise of multinational companies. This has led to a greater demand for English skills in businesses, education, and tourism. Today, English is compulsory in Colombian schools from elementary to higher education levels. Additionally, there has been a rise in private language schools, English exams, and study abroad opportunities. These developments show Colombia's dedication to improving English proficiency nationwide. Many Colombians view the increasing prominence of English positively, recognizing it as a gateway to global opportunities. English proficiency is seen as essential for enhancing competitiveness in the job market, accessing international education and research opportunities, and fostering cultural exchange. Business leaders and entrepreneurs often welcome the expanding power of English, as it facilitates trade, investment, and collaboration with English speaking countries and multinational corporations. English fluency can open doors to new markets, attract foreign investors, and boost Colombia's economic growth. Educators and policymakers emphasize the importance of English language education as a means of preparing students for the demands of the globalization world. Efforts to improve English proficiency in schools and universities are seen as crucial for enhancing Colombia's competitiveness and innovation capacity. Some Colombians express concerns about the potential impact of the expanding power of English on Colombian culture and identity. There is a fear that excessive emphasis on English may lead to erosion of indigenous language and cultural heritage, as well as the dominance of foreign cultural influences. On the phonological aspect of Colombia English, vowel sounds. Colombian English speakers may pronounce vowel sounds differently from other varieties of English, influenced by Spanish phonetics. For example, the pronunciation of vowels like A or E may vary compared to standard English pronunciation. Consonant sounds. Similar to vowels, consonant sounds in Colombian English may exhibit variation influenced by Spanish phonology. For instance, the pronunciation of consonants like T or D may differ from standard English pronunciation due to Spanish influence. While language transfer, due to the influence of Spanish as the native language, Colombian English speakers may exhibit instances of language transfer, where phonological features from Spanish affect their pronunciation of English words. For example,
So the first main questions, how do you think speaking English has influenced the way you pronounce English words?
Well, um, I was thinking about how to answer that question because I have never make that question to myself before because sometimes I make things in automatically. So, but I will say that well, how speaking Spanish has influenced the way I pronounce English words. Well, it has influenced in many things, in good and bad ways, of course, because initially it was really difficult for me as a Spanish speaker, in a Spanish native speaker, to pronounce some words, especially due to the vowels pronunciation, since well, the vowels are not the same in English and in Spanish, are really different, and that was like the main issue. But I will say that now Spanish. Well, I have used Spanish as well as a tool for me to learn English. So it has influence in many ways because all the people that initially tried to teach me English, it started in Spanish, of course. Um, but yeah, I will say that maybe the big difference is the are the vowels, and
Sounds.
like some
Yes.
specific sounds. Yeah,
A E I O
I
U.
don't know if
Okay.
that answers. Yes.
All right. Okay. All right. With that, the first question is also the same with the second questions. So we are going to move at the third questions. Are there any particular words or sounds in English that you think Colombia speakers commonly mispronounce?
Sure. Well, normally, when you try to speak English or when you are listening someone else who doesn't speak English normally here in Colombia, like my classmates at the school, because yeah, they knew like a few things about English, but they couldn't speak English really well. So the big difference was like they don't have now how to pronounce. They don't know because, for example, the A in my language it's pronounced as A, but they when they read an English word, they pronounce the word exactly the same as it sounds in Spanish, not in English. So that's like almost all the words are mispronounced here normally. Even when you try to, when you already know English, there are some words like, unfortunately, some people don't know how to pronounce that. Or I will also say that I have heard many people mispronouncing the word get, like the verb, because
Okay.
the specific sound of the G in English is really different from Spanish. Or also, let me think. Uh, well, all the words that starts with T and H, like three, the number three, most of the people doesn't pronounce the H correctly here. They just
Oh,
say it like three, not three.
three
Yeah,
with the
yeah,
silent H. All
yeah, exactly.
Oh, all right. Let's move on to the fifth questions. Are there any technique or resources you find helpful for practicing English pronunciation?
Well, let me think. I will say that the two most important things in my personal experience learning English was having someone else to practice English with. Well, of course, at the first time, it's not going to be that good, like the best pronunciation, but it helps you a lot to have someone to speak in English like all the day. For example, in my case, I had a cousin that we both were studying at the same place and at the same time. So when we were on our way to get home all the day, we were just speaking English, like practicing. And also, there are some online tools like these pages when you can make video calls or with strangers around the world. You can also try to speak with that kind of people because they're going to be like just strangers, of course, but you can ask them to give you tips or some good tips to speak or pronounce words better. Um, well, like these two tools, and one of the most important things to practice, I will say, is not to be like afraid of practicing because normally I think normally people when they're learning, they are ashamed of pronouncing or mispronouncing a specific word, so they don't try. That's like the big mistake because if you don't try, you're not going to learn, of course, because you have to receive feedback, and even if it's good or bad, any feedback is helpful for you because you learn what you did wrong or what was better than the last time and these kind of things.
Mm,
Sure.
are there any specific English sounds that do not exist in your native language?
In my native language, let me think. Um, yeah, for example, the example that I gave you with the T and the H, we don't have that in Spanish. We just have like three instead of three. So Colombian people here and Spanish native speakers are not used to combine that sounds, or the G is like when we see a G with an E or an I, we pronounce it like G instead of G.
Oh,
It's
okay.
strange. Yeah,
Yes.
G.
Oh,
For example, a word in Spanish that have that sound like gelatina is a word in Spanish. But in English, the G has a totally different sound. So yeah.
oh. The ninth questions. In your opinion, do you believe having a weak English accent might cause a problem during communication with foreigners?
Well, to be honest, if you're traveling, it doesn't have to be a problem. Well, because there are many different kind of people. But for example, in my job, if there are some persons that are going to be like more rude with you if you doesn't speak like native English. It happened to me a lot when I started working with it. But normally, if you're traveling, like normally, I will think that all the people should respect that. And of course, if the main object is to communicate something, it's going to work, of course. Independent, no matter if you have or doesn't have like the best pronunciation, the most important thing is that they're going to understand what are you saying. So normally, I wouldn't say that that will be an issue or a problem, like a big problem. No, not to be honest.
The importance of English in Colombia and its expanding power signify a profound transformation in the country's linguistic landscape and its broader socio-economic context. English has transitioned from being a foreign language to a crucial tool for advancement in various domains, reshaping education, businesses, and cultural exchange.
Assalamualaikum and hello everyone. My name is Muhammad Irfan bin Muhammad Khairi and today I will be explaining to you my vowel group project presentation. So before we start, I will be explaining to you the background information of my subject. His name is Ahmad Hassad, a 49-year-old engineer who was born in Turkey and is now living in Seremban, Negeri Sembilan. Starting off with the speaker's reaction towards the expanding power of English in his or her respective country. According to him, the increasing prominence of English in Turkey is viewed with a mix of appreciation and concern. He acknowledged that English has played a significant role in Turkey's modern history, particularly as a global lingua franca and a language of commerce and diplomacy. The widespread adoption of English has opened up opportunities for international collaboration and cultural exchange, which foster a more interconnected world. The interviewee recognized the importance of being proficient in English for personal and professional growth in a globalized world. Nonetheless, he emphasized the importance of a striking balance between embracing English as a valuable skill and preserving the richness of the Turkish language and culture. The sentiment seems to be one of navigating the challenges posed by the expanding power of English while safeguarding the uniqueness and significance of Turkey's linguistic heritage.
If you ask this question 10 years, yeah, if you ask this question 10 years ago, I would say definitely. Okay, if you ask this question 10 years ago, I would say it's very important because the language is very important middle for people to understand other culture and other people's life. But now, since everything has been started being digitalized, and most of the people understand and they use the digital tools to engage with other, and slowly it becomes more and more accurate and more convenient for people. Like if you ever now I have a phone and I have a translation module, so I can use that one in anywhere. So English 10 years ago is what important now. Since I have any tools, it's I don't think so. It is not important anymore. I mean, of course, for certain areas, like if in international politics, international business, international science, in some areas, English is very important because the that areas, for instance, as the science has been born in that language. So people started creating or generating or producing words in that language. Then they start using to promote to the world, rest of the world. They start using English. It's important to do for business or for political international politics, but for normal life, for touristic purpose, for uh, local basic needs, you don't need to. You don't need English. By the way, English has been English vocabulary has been sort of embedded or integrated into the language we are talking. For instance, in Malaysia, a reaction is become a reaksi or axi or teraxi, right? So the vocabulary has been embedded into the language you are speaking. So then, so we do understand in some words, also in Turkish, from English, from other languages, has been embedded into Turkish. So we do understand when you are saying, when I say situasi, or in Turkish situation or status, I understand it is the same word, same meaning. So English become a part of our language, in our language. If we are realized or not, it is we are using it in many vocabulary. So learning English is not important as much as before. Now, it depends on the purpose you have and depends on where you want to work at. For instance, I am doing international business. Of course, people in my country don't know how to speak Malay, or people from here that do not speak Turkish. Although we do have very similar vocabularies, in we don't, we still need to use English as a communications middle. But besides that, for having fun, understanding the like a series, TV series, or fun stuff, we don't need to specifically understand all the English vocabularies.
Moving on to the next one, the history, development, and current progress of English language in the speaker's respective country. The interviewee explained that the history of English in Turkey began in the early 20th century, mainly for diplomatic purposes. Over time, there was a shift, and English became crucial not just for international communication, but also for academic and professional progress. In recent decades, there has been a growing demand for English education in Turkey, with many universities offering English medium programs. Currently, English is a compulsory subject in Turkish schools, and proficiency exams play a significant role in university admissions and job applications.
I am not very sure exactly what time it has been compulsory from in Turkey,
Okay.
but we, if I'm not mistaken, since 1970s, 1980s, people start learning English in the primary school and secondary schools. But because we are not really English white spoken country, people spoken ability is very low. So except some holiday places or metropole places like Istanbul, Ankara, or similar holiday places, people don't speak or people speak very less English.
I understand. So
All right.
it's so you are saying that it started from around the 1970s. Is that correct?
Yeah, around that time it has been compulsory, but exact time I cannot know, but I assume. But because we are not in the commodity economy, we are not under occupy. We have never been under occupation of UK or any other country. We have never been forced to learn and speak out other language than Turkish.
Last one is the justification on the issue in the speaker's respective country. While it is great that English opens up global opportunities for Turkey, there are some issues to think about. One big concern is that as English becomes more important, its own language and culture might get lost, especially among younger people. Another worry is that not everyone has the same chance to learn English well. Some people might struggle because they don't have access to good English education. This could create a gap between those who can speak English well and those who can't, which will affect their chances for success in schools or work. To make things better, we should make sure everyone has a fair shot at learning English. At the same time, we should celebrate and value our own language and culture. That way, we can enjoy the benefits of knowing English without losing what makes us unique.
I don't believe in. Yeah, I don't believe it is going to cause because
Mhm.
uh, every places has its own natural speaking way,
Yes.
spoken way. For instance, if you go to India, they are speaking Hindi, Urdu, or Tamil with their own accent, and it's not easy to establish them as using English like in England or
Yeah.
in other English-spoken countries. In fact, for me, it doesn't matter. Even if you are speaking, if you are the pronunciation is very weak,
Mhm.
we don't mind as long as we are focusing the content of the speech, not
Ah.
the pronunciation. For instance, in the business English, or when I talk to people from here or from other places, we really don't care how he pronounced the vocabulary that he speaks or how he spell it out all the words from his mouth, out of his mouth. So in case we are focusing very much on the content of his speech. Is he giving what message he wants to convey to me? What message, if I'm understanding his message, or if he understand my message to him. So that is more important than taking care of the vocabulary
Mm.
or the pronunciation of the toning of the words.
So that is all for my presentation. Thank you.